Welcome to Card Players The Circuit with your hosts, the Donkey, the Cub, and the Caveman.
That's right, everyone. You are listening to The Circuit. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122 on cardplayer.com and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. I'm going to do you guys first. Gavin Smith,
You're going to do us first?
And Scott Huff. No, announce you first.
You've gone to
From
the
Bellagio in Las Vegas. Super professional tonight, boys. Bellagio Cup going on around us right now. That's what that clicking of chips in the background and whatever else you're hearing. There will be no F-bombs, though, because that's illegal in poker. That started a couple days ago on the 24th, running through August 10th.
But it's legal on our show.
But not encouraged.
Not encouraged, but it's certainly legal.
The Bellagio Cup started on July 24th. It's running through August 10th. Series of $1,000 buy-in events. Going to be culminating in a big $10K buy-in event. If you bust out, come on down here. It will be double stacked. So maybe you'll have a chance to not bust out as fast as you did in the main event. And sure. I'm not talking to anyone in particular. Joe. What are your predictions for the Bellagio Cup, Joe?
Why do you always have to come after me like that?
What are your predictions for the Bellagio Cup?
Why do you always have to come after me like that?
I don't know. That's
you totally put me on Front Street. It's totally unnecessary. I don't understand why.
Joe,
you're not sorry. Don't apologize when you're not sorry.
I am actually sorry.
Joe,
I'm sorry for that.
I, for one, will be cheering for you to have an outstanding main event.
Thank you very much.
I love how Gavin loves to play. As soon as I'm bad cop, Gavin goes to super good cop. He's like, I love you, Joe.
Well, you don't have to be bad cop, and then you won't push him into it.
They're delicious. We have a great show today for everybody. Hand of the day, phone calls, poker talk with Big G and the Baby Kangaroo, as well as Chris Bell and Howard Lederer, both on the program this evening.
Chris Bell.
You know who
Chris Bell.
Little known story, Chris Bell once made it so that I went broke in a cash game because he stood behind me and mocked the fact that I never played a hand. The very next hand I played it.
Chris Bell mocked
flush draw, got involved in a $600 pot, and it bricked out.
Chris Bell mocked you? He mocked your play?
Yeah. I'm pretty much going to ask him for my $600 when he comes on the show today.
Don't ever ask for Chris Bell's help, man. It doesn't work.
Well, don't forget about the live show, everybody. Live show, Sunday, July 30th, 10 a.m. The Donk line will be wide open. We'll be here in the Fontana Lounge. Come down, say hi, call in your phone calls. You can interact with us and whatever guests we happen to pull in along the way. Don't know who they're going to be yet, but we will let you know.
They're going to be good.
They're going to be good. That is true. Donk line phone number 877-675-1306. So, gentlemen, you had a day off today. What was that like?
Well, it wasn't
sort
really
of a day off.
Well, the very next question was how did the props go? But you kind of had a day off.
May I?
Yeah.
I as usual, I woefully underperformed in most of the props. I did very poorly in the basketball portion. I did atrociously badly in the bowling. I tied for first in the baseball portion, but truth be told, I probably should have won. But again, I sucked. And then in the go-karts, though, I did finish second. So that was a tiny slice of redemption, but not enough. Not enough to bring me to the heights, as I finished third in the prop bet segment out of 5. Not a good percentage, people. Not a good percentage.
How'd you do, Gavin?
I'm actually very pleased with my performance today. Although, I guess I will give Joe props for finishing ahead of me, and technically I came fourth. That's fine. I did come fourth.
But you came up huge. I mean, you were the overperformer of the day.
I was the first shooter in basketball. I put 22 points on the board. Josh Aryeh was the only one to beat that. Phil Gordon tied me, but I tied for second in basketball.
Mm-hmm. And this was Papa Shot basketball, right? Down at ESPN?
No, it's not Papa Shot. It's bigger than that.
Oh, it's a little bigger than that?
Yeah, right. Then I went to the bowling portion, and I actually did not bowl well. I know I can do a lot better on that game because I've done it one other time that I did really good. And but I rolled whatever number, I think 114 or something like that. I came second in the bowling. Then in the baseball was
unbelievable. What you did in baseball
was a little crazy because we were doing the warm up, and I'm not a baseball player. I've never been a baseball player. I'm from Canada, for crying out loud. So I'm in the baseball thing, right, and I'm taking my chops at the warm up, and we have to get it out of the infield, and I got 0 balls out during the warm up.
0. We were mocking. Wow. We were laughing.
Everybody's like, "There's no way Gavin can hit a pitch."
Right.
And then I get in for my time, and I was 4 for 6 out of the infield.
And suddenly it was Reggie Jackson. I mean, it was Mr.
July going up there limping.
But I have to say, I mean, I do have to interject. Gavin would, every activity we started, he looked so bad in the practice round. We would like laugh, and as soon as it turned on, it was like, okay, now suddenly the lights are on. Michael Jordan in basketball,
a true hustler through and through.
He suddenly became, I don't know anyone in bowling, but he became somebody really good in bowling. And then it was Reggie Jackson in baseball. It was unbelievable how this kid turns it on when the pressure's up. I mean, he just completely rose to the occasion. It was unbelievable.
You don't know any professional bowlers?
I don't.
Intern, producers, Danny, Justin, no professional bowlers?
Nobody knows a professional bowler.
All right, fine. So, main event right around the corner, 2 days away. Any expectations? I was totally joking about the Bellagio Cup. You won't even be here because you'll be too busy polishing the bracelet.
No worries. I have
First of all, are you losing any weight for the costumes, though?
I don't have to lose weight. Luckily for me, I work out regularly and I run, so I'm good.
Wonder Woman, though, I mean, seriously, you may want to drop like at least $5.
I do have one expectation, which is to be very uncomfortable all throughout the main event.
I think actually Chris Bell has an offer for you that maybe
I've heard.
Maybe he'll bring that up later on and let you know what it is. Exactly.
Or maybe you'll bring it up so that he can talk about it.
Exactly.
If he forgets to, you'll, I'm sure, remind him.
Right.
But what about the expectations for the main event? Obviously, it's enormous. Are either of you going in with any expectations whatsoever for the main event, or is it just I'm going to show up, play against the other 9 guys on my table, and that's it?
Well, I place high expectations on me in every event I play. Every main event I play. I'll be honest with you, on the lower buy-in events, I kind of go in. I still have high expectations, but realistically, I know that you're not going to get through that many of those. But in any big buy-in event I play, I have very high expectations. I'm going in expecting to win the tournament, and I will be not happy unless I do win the tournament.
Joey?
I think it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, I applaud your vigor, if you will. I just want to play well. I mean, I have the same idea that I have for every tournament. I just want to get in there, not make mistakes, and if I go out on some kind of beat, I'll go out on a beat, and that's much more acceptable than going out, making a mistake or doing something, playing poorly.
I totally agree with that.
Right, but I'm just going to try to play well. It's for me I don't even think it's a good idea to even think about winning this main event. I mean, you just got to take it day by day and play. Just play well each day, and then hopefully the culmination of that is a win, for one of us on the circuit, hopefully. But for me, it's too tough. I just like to play. I feel like I get ahead of myself if I'm focusing on winning too early. I just gotta do my thing.
All right. Well, there's some events wrapping up down at the Rio, so now it's time for World Series of Poker news. World Series of Poker news. It's Slamastica. $1,000 with rebuys. Your champion, Phil Hellmuth. Wow. I didn't build that up enough. Your champion, the one, the only, Phil Hellmuth, his 10th bracelet, and he is now leading the current Player of the Year for the World Series, the Player of the Year race there, but not for long. Not for long, as we have some announcements to make about the young prodigy Jeff Madsen as well.
But back to Phil Hellmuth, though, this dude is something else. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. This man plays some badass poker. He gets there all the time. I mean, regularly. I mean, he's got tons of seconds and thirds, too, along with 10 wins. Right. I mean,
he's a great player.
People dog him. People dog him a lot, and I don't think he deserves as much dogging as he gets, because I think the guy might be the best tournament poker player ever to play.
Well, I don't think people dog his play. It's just impossible to root somebody who tells you that he's the best.
I root for him.
I can't. I like Phil as a person, but I can't root for the guy who every time I see him he goes, I'm the best hold'em player in the world. I don't know if you know that, but I am the best hold'em player in the world. Although it's hard for me to root for that.
I think a lot of players who are friends with him on the circuit.
Doesn't Barry say he's the best poker player in the world?
Well,
you root for him?
I don't know that he ever says he's the absolute best. I mean, he thinks he's one of it, but it's different to go in the media and Phil's thing is to tell everyone in the media how great he is. I mean, that certainly is different than Barry's thing.
But that's a marketing ploy more than anything else.
No, of course, but he has to. For me, it's grading. I mean, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear anybody about that.
I think that a lot of the reason people, at least around the circuit that we've talked to, who probably ride him because they want to see him get out of that whole business thing, jump in and actually kick ass the way he knows how to, and he certainly has proved it at this World Series by doing that. Second place there was Juha Helppi in the $1,500 limit shootout. The final table started today. There are currently 3 remaining with the chip leader Victorio Purchase. $1,500 no limit, over 400 bust outs in the first 35 minutes yesterday. Wow. Currently 41 players remaining.
I was one of them.
I was 2 of them.
Currently 41 players remaining. Your chip leader is Jason Strasser. The $5,000 deuce to 7 with rebuys. 8 remaining last time we checked, and only 7 cash. The chip leader, David Williams. Notable still alive, Alan Cunningham, Greg Raymer, Daniel Lai, Men Win, and Lane Flack.
Yeah, Lane Flack is still there. He's playing solid.
So he made a final table? Come on the circuit, make a final table.
But
pretty unbelievable stuff considering how sort of cold he was.
I'll tell you, I've been watching. I was watching over there a little while today, and I was watching Alan play. The man, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is a genius in all card games, and I really believe he's going to win that tournament. I mean, this guy is just out of this world good. It's sickening. I don't like it.
In the $1,000 stud, 8 or better. 5 remaining. Bill Edler was just eliminated. Jeff Madsen is 3rd in chips. We're getting this kid on the show. I got his phone number today. He will be on the show.
He's going to win number 3 tonight.
Out of control.
Hey, Joe, he's going to win number 3 tonight.
I don't see it happening. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say right now he's not gonna win 8. He's on an amazing run, but I don't think he's gonna take down bracelet number 3.
But we will find out.
I'll tell you what. If you remove Greg Dinkin from there, I'll let you pick anybody else, and I'll take Jeff Mattson.
There's only 3 players left, dude.
No, there's 4 players left.
I don't even know who's on the table.
Okay, me neither.
We'll have Jeff on the show to talk about his third bracelet. I agree with Gavin.
And now it's time for Poker Talk with Big G and the baby kangaroo.
You guys like that? I love that. Today's Poker Talk segment, slow playing. What is it? How is it used? And should you use it in No Limit Hold'em? Boys? Slow playing.
Slow
playing.
Slow playing. What it is having a strong hand, choosing not to bet it as to disguise the strength of your hand so that you can get more money out of it in a future street.
Right.
Should you use it? Sorry, can I?
No. I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, should you use it? That depends on your style. If you choose to have a style like I have, where you're in a lot of pots, you're bluffing a fair bit, you're betting a lot, I don't need to slow play. I get plenty of action on my hands regardless. Slow playing is more for players, I think, that play a little tighter and don't get action on their big hands. And it's just a way of getting better action on your big hands.
Right. And I agree, with what Gavin said. Should you use it is actually probably the most interesting part. I'm in the same boat as Gavin, where I tend to get action because we are in there mixing it up, and people are always looking to look us up, because they know that we're doing a lot of crazy stuff. So it really depends. I mean, you got to look at that situation. If you're the kind of player, that people know are going to be doing crazy things, and then all of a sudden you check, it's such a red flag. So in that sense, you could actually use it to get that free card. Suddenly you check, and it's in the back of everyone's head that you could be check raising him to try and get some more money. But like Gavin said, if you don't get a lot of action, you play pretty tight, then you might want to slow play it. Because people are going to assume that if you're betting it out, that you have a hand.
All right, now it's time for our hand of the day.
Nice hand, sir.
This one is from Phil Hellmuth's final table there at the $1,000 with rebuys event. Phil Hellmuth limps from the small blind, and Darren Ferracano raises $40,000 more from the big blind. Hellmuth calls. The flop comes king 6-5, rainbow, and Hellmuth checks. Ferracano bets $60,000, and Hellmuth makes the call. The turn is the deuce of clubs, and Hellmuth checks. Ferracano checks, and the river is a 7, an offsuit 7. So there's only 2 clubs on board. No possible flush on the river. Hellmuth bets $140,000, and Ferracano folds. Hellmuth shows ace-king and wins the pot. What do you guys think of this play?
Well, Phil obviously, limped in with a strong hand. He was hoping to hit exactly what he did, which is trap something. He was lucky enough to hit his king. I think the most interesting thing about this hand is you have to be the certain kind of player to do that, like exactly what we were saying before. If Gavin's limping in, it might be a bit of a sign. If I'm limping in, it might be a sign that I have a strong hand.
Too.
Yeah, you do that more than I do that. So it kind of depends. And I think from there, Phil hit a big hand. He just wanted to keep his opponent, betting. So that's why he never took the lead. He never, wanted to check raise, and because he figured the guy probably didn't have much. He had the paired king, so you have to figure that he probably doesn't have that much, and he didn't want to lose him. At that point.
I don't like the way he played it. Hardly ever. I don't mind the limp. Once the guy raises, what people don't understand with ace king a lot of the time is that you really don't have anything. Honestly, you're a dog. To a pair of 4s, and but you got a strong enough hand that you can probably make a pair of 4s fold. So if you're gonna limp with it and the guy raises behind you, I like re-raising it pre-flop. That being said, after he calls, when the flop comes with a king, I like either leading or check raising. I like leading because when you lead into a flop, a nondescript flop like that, and a guy's got like a pair between the king and the smallest card, he does not give you the king very often. So like say he's got like 2 10s and you lead that flop, you're going to get raised a really high percentage of the time. And then you can make it into a bigger pot when you've got him like crippled.
Right.
The turn, once he chooses check, I don't mind the check. On the river, I think once you've got to that point, the man probably doesn't have anything that he can call you with.
Right.
So I think at that point, give him an opportunity to bluff. You're probably not getting any money out of him by betting, so why not give him a shot at taking it away from you?
Well, the question I had about it, and this is coming completely from a rank amateur standpoint, but when the board puts 2 clubs out there on the turn, I feel like it's a tendency of myself, and I won't lump other amateurs in, but as soon as that board starts to get quote scary, has a couple clubs out there, I'm always making the play to try to blow the guy off the hand. I'm never trying to give him that opportunity to bluff. Is that a big mistake when you start getting too scared from the board? You have to understand, and if you go back in the Card Player archives, there was a really interesting column written years and years ago by Roy Cook talking about basically an Indian in a forest. Basically, you can't be afraid of an Indian behind every tree in a forest.
And it's the same thing. A club draw comes off on the turn. Well, you can't be afraid that your opponent's got the club draw, for crying out loud. I mean, what are the odds? He probably doesn't. And more importantly than that, if he does have the club draw and he was bluffing, he's likely going to bet it.
Right.
So, I mean, giving the free card on the turn, I don't think is a big deal. The club's not a big deal. And I think that, you are making a mistake if you're constantly giving your opponents the draw that's going to beat you.
Right. You can't always assume that the person has the hand that's going to get you in trouble, which is something that sometimes you fall in. Not you, but sometimes players fall into that trap.
All right, we'll be back right after this with your phone calls and emails for us on The Circuit.
How does $10 in free poker cash sound? It's easy at VCPoker.com. Just log on, sign up, and get $10 free to start playing a wide range of games, including Hold'em. VCPoker.com makes it easy with the latest software, and your payments and payouts are always safe and secure at VCPoker.com. With 60 years of gaming excellence, VCPoker.com is a company you can trust. Sign up now for your free $10. Log on to VCPoker.com/free35 and get your money for nothing and your chips for free.
Welcome back to The Circuit, everyone. Scott Huff, Joe Sebok, and Gavin Smith. I reversed it right there. You like that?
I do. You have multi-talented.
Talking a little poker. By the way, something we didn't mention much on the air was that we were on the cover of Card Player magazine, and if you would like our faces delivered directly to your house, although it may be too late now, Card Player is still offering our Subscribe and Win promotion, 85% off. It's only $19.99 to subscribe right now, and if you go to www.cardplayersports.com and subscribe today, you can be entered to win your way to any sporting event in the world, any event, and we will pay your airfare and your expenses to go to that, and obviously tickets to whatever you're going to, including the Polar, Penguin, Sumo, Ice Fishing Championship.
And Joe will include a naked signed photo of himself to all subscribers.
Well,
I have no idea where that came from.
I think we want to get subscribers. I don't think that we want to frighten subscribers. So
that's true.
I don't think that is actually a good idea to do.
8-page insert. All right, here we go. 8-page phone calls.
Hey guys, great show. Love listening to it. Just had one question. If Scott, Gavin, Joe, if you had one big book to pick up that you would think would help your game, what would it be? Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great show.
That's a pretty decent question.
It is a very decent question, and in my opinion, the book that changed my life in No Limit Texas Hold'em was Super System 1. So if I could only buy one book, I would buy Super System 2.
Right. I actually think it's a...
Super System 2 wasn't available when I was there, right? So now it's even better than Super System 1 was.
I think that it really depends on where you are in your learning process, because certain books are better for you. The one that really helped me was the Sklansky Hold'em for advanced players. That's the one that I cited. It really made a big difference for me. But
because you wanted to know the groupings of hands.
No, it wasn't the groupings, but just for me.
Oh, what's a great book? You're right.
Yeah, well, for me, you have to remember, I don't have a background in cards. I mean, I didn't grow up. So for me, that's my weak point. My weak point is understanding and reading hands and all that kind of stuff. So and for me, that was a great book. So I would say that one right now.
Well, I'd say for the real basics, like nuts and bolts of tournament poker, if you don't have the bear to talk to and you haven't been around the circuit like Gavin Smith, was No Limit Championship, No Limit, and Pot Limit Hold'em by Cloutier and McAvoy. I thought that book was amazing. It gave me a good idea of how to play them. It teaches a pretty tight style that TJ does not play, admittedly, himself, but that's the book that changed my poker life. It's the only reason I'm sitting here right now. Words call.
Hey guys, Jack in Atlanta. Great show. I have a pot odds question for you. So you flop a flush draw. You're about 4-1 to hit it on the turn, 4-1 to hit it on the river. If you combine them both, you're getting about 2-1. So tell me if I'm correct here, but basically you're trying to get 4-1 on each street. I guess the only way that you'd ever really consider calling it 2-1 is if a guy moved in, all in, and you knew that you probably wouldn't be risking anymore. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
We don't.
And I hope you can.
I do.
Verify.
I kind of do.
Well,
I kind of do.
Thanks, guys.
I understand what he's saying.
Is he
He's
talking
talking about
about
reverse
the
implied
hitting
odds.
his
He's talking about reverse implied odds, saying you really need 4-1 because you may have to face a big bet on another street if you miss. And he's also saying, are you about a 1.9 to 1 dog to hit a flush, which is what you are on the flop now?
No, you're like about 1.35, I think it is.
Yeah, okay. So
I think about 1.35 to hit it on the flop. Basically, I think in No Limit Hold'em, if you flop a flush draw and if your stack is deep enough, you can afford to just about pay a pot size bet on almost all the time. Because you're going to get some action along the way most of the time. So that's what I would go with there. On the turn, you've reduced yourself to a 3-1 dog, and you got to take in tournament poker. You really have to assess whether or not your stack is deep enough to gamble for that for that pull. And most of the time, flush draw is probably, unless you're going to be the aggressor, you're going to let it go on the turn. But you're going to go for it on the flop.
Joe, in agreement?
I'm in agreement. That was very good.
All right, I have an email here for you, Joe. That says, "Hi guys, I would like to point out to Joe that he always says much chip. For example, he had so much chips. Chip is a countable noun, and hence it should be many."
So many
from
chips?
Zach in China.
Dude,
in China. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Why isn't he giving us like the Chinese?
Why is he
version?
giving you English lessons?
Yeah, from China. He might be right, actually.
I like much chip. Way to go, Joe.
Well, I've never said much
there's a lot
chip.
of here's the
much
point.
chips
Though.
is cool. Props to you.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, got broke is one of those things that people
Right.
are going to say, even if
What
they're
it
from
is-
Stanford,
Yeah.
as Michael Craig put
Well,
in his
it's
book
also-
about Chip Reese.
It's kind of like poker slang, you know.
Right,
I just had a ton of chips. I just had so much chips. I mean, it's just kind of the way he very well might be right. I think he is right, actually. In
Word
terms of the
to
actual
much chip.
Word to much chip.
After this, we will talk to Chris Bell, who has a great command of the English language on the circuit.
I'm Chris Ferguson, and I'm a member of Team Full Tilt. If you want to learn, chat, and play with me and some of the other world's best poker players, go where they live. FullTiltPoker.com.
Hey, this is Lane Plack, and you're listening to The Circuit.
Welcome back to the circuit, everyone. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122, on cardplayer.com, and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. Scott Huff, Gavin Smith, and Joe Sebok. Our guest today is a poker pro with over $700,000 in lifetime tournament winnings. His most recent cash was in the six-handed no-limit event at the World Series of Poker this year. Chris Bell, how's it going, Chris?
Not bad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
What up, Chris?
Talk a little bit about this World Series for you so far. A couple cashes, but how's it gone overall?
It's been a grind. Nothing major. 2 small cashes. So I'm stuck pretty good for the trip right now. Plus, I've lost a couple bets to Gavin. So
Yeah, we all do. We all do, buddy. We all do.
We will all lose one or two
You're
bets a
lucky.
lifetime to Gavin.
No, I lose more bets than anyone. I used to be a best of it guy. Now I'm a completely the worst of it guy.
I know, when I first met you, you said I'm a best of it guy. I'm not
I
giving you this
switched.
bet.
I switched to a completely the worst of it guy.
it's funner to be the worst of it guy. I mean, when you win, it's a lot more satisfaction.
It is a lot more fun.
Because you have to come back so big.
And people want to hang out with you more when you're the worst of it guy.
Yeah, because you're always giving them money.
Exactly. I realized that in Reno when they found out I like to play Chinese poker, and all of a sudden all these pros I'd never talked to before were like, "Hey, you like Chinese? Want to come to my room? I got a suite." I was like, all right, perfect. That's the way to make friends. So would you have the main event approaching, obviously? Are there any expectations, really? This thing's so enormous. How are you feeling going into it?
Ginormous.
Yeah, ginormous.
It's ginormous.
I mean, I'm ready to play it. I'm pretty excited. Just going to try to get through the first day with some chips and go from there.
I have an offer for you.
I'm listening.
I have a beautiful Superman outfit that you could wear.
Actually,
Well,
to be perfectly honest with you, Chris Bell made an offer last night to me.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to make it to all of our listeners tonight, the offer that you made to me yesterday regarding this this bet. Didn't you offer to pay for something to be done to Joe Sebok?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
That sounds interesting.
I don't think I'm comfortable with this.
Wonder Woman outfit, and I'll pay for him to have his body painted the Wonder Woman outfit.
Airbrushed, I think is what he actually
Dude,
said. Airbrushed.
trust me,
And
you
all
do not wanna see that.
all you will be wearing is the skivvies. He'll let you wear the skivvies. You don't
Wow.
actually have to
I'm going to guarantee that
have
is
a
not
trucker
something
then.
that you want to see, dude. If you pay me on top, then I'll consider it.
Wait, Gavin, can you force him to do that? Is that still considered a costume? Can you force that upon him?
No, he
I
can't,
don't
he
know.
can't
I don't
force
think so.
it.
We got to give Joe Sebok.
But you know me. I like dares. I'm not going to back off of anything. I will listen.
If you'll do the,
You know how cold it is
But I
in that
can't be
room, too?
forced.
I'll
Yeah,
I'll throw 800 in if you'll take that brush.
800, please.
That's pretty gross.
You need to try
Chris.
like
Not gonna
8,000.
I mean, that's
For me to
much.
body paint my body in front of like national television and a whole room full of tournament players.
Yeah.
It would have to be more than 800, my friend.
Everyone will be getting their eyes full of this bet, but I want to talk to Chris a little bit here. Why don't you tell the people out there who don't really know who you are, saw you on the Mirage, and want to know more? When did you get your start in poker? How did you come up in the game and to where you are now?
I was playing poker when I was in high school, and then in college I kind of paid for my way through college. And about 3 years ago I started playing the tournaments and did pretty well in Foxwood at a couple of them. And next thing you know, I was trying to travel around playing all of them and have for probably the last 2.5 years or so.
How are you enjoying the tournament circuit?
I mean, I like the circuit for sure. I mean, I like traveling around. I like playing, and I got a lot of really good friends that play. Hanging out here at the World Series this entire time, kind of getting to be a grind. But I'm ready to get back home. But
I'm bad.
But just a normal circuit. I like doing that. I like the traveling.
Well, obviously, your highest profile cash so far was at the Mirage, coming in third place there. You were at the final table with Gavin here, and you guys are buddies. I'm sure it was not fun playing against each other at the final table, but you did get involved in a monster hand with one another. In fact, where you bluffed a dry side pot, I believe. Why don't you guys walk us through that hand a little bit? And what was
no, he never bluffed. He didn't never bluff.
I got bluffed on a dry side pot.
Oh, okay, there. That's what it was.
Ted Forrest got me pretty good on that one.
Why don't you walk us through the hand?
On that particular hand, Keto Fan moved all in, and Ted called, and I called with 2 9s, and it came a king and 2 babies, and Ted let out at the pot with ace-8 of spades, with 2 spades on the board, and I folded my 2 9s.
I thought he had ace-9 of spades. I thought it was
ace-9. You're right, it was ace-9 of spades. And
there was 2 spades on the flop as well.
Right, and so I folded, and his ace-high was actually good. He had keto. But anyway, he hit, and then the 9 came on the turn.
The sick thing was the 9 came, which would have given Ted a pair and a flush draw. It would have been
Did he have a position on you? Or did you have position on him?
I had position on him.
Had position on him.
I was on the button. In retrospect, I should have re-raised and went head up with keto, but
it sounds like one of those hands that you would.
Right, and what happened was, the reason why I didn't was the day before, somebody moved all in, and Ted called, and Toto re-raised.
Toto. Sorry, I thought you were calling Guido Toto.
No, it's Toto. Toto re-raised, and then it came back to Ted, and Ted just moved all in after he just moved called behind. And now Toto folded, and Ted turned over ace king.
So that influenced you a little bit.
Yeah, and he kind of made a comment to Toto, like, I was going to check it, you're the one who re-raised me, and Toto had to weigh a pair. So, I kind of thought he might have had like a big ace, and he might re-raise and move all in there, and then I'm flipping a coin.
It's even weirder that he was hitting kind of lambasting Toto a little for making an etiquette play, but then he's bluffing you out of a dry side pot in that situation. So that's interesting. But
that was it was a pretty good.
It was a good play by Ted, I thought.
Yeah, what a bad play for sure. And Sexton and them kind of talked about it, like they didn't think he should have bet there, but I didn't really have too much of a problem with it. I think I gave him a bad look, but that wasn't one of the biggest hands of the tournament.
No, that wasn't. No, the key part was when I hit the card that changed my life instead of changing Chris's. Right. I often say to him now, I'm like, hey Chris, imagine if the river had just been a queen, because.
Well, what was the hand? Tell us the hand.
We had
people who didn't see it.
We had a pot where Chris made it, I believe, 200,000 on the button. And I made it 600,000 under the small blind. I had ace jack, and Chris did something that, in my mind, that he hadn't done much during the tournament. He started talking to me. He goes, "Well, you're just going to move in no matter what the flop is, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't guarantee that." But when he did that, I really felt that he had an ace, but I didn't think it was a strong ace. But now I'm faced with the problem of I don't really know what his kicker is and what's going to hit him. So even though I said I can't really guarantee that, he was dead right. I was just going to move in no matter what the flop was. So the flop came up 9 high. And I shipped him in, and Mr. Bell beat me into the pot. And I was thoroughly disgusted to see ace 9.
You had ace 9, you had ace jack.
Right. The river paired the board, and
turn paired the board.
And turn paired the board, and the river came off the miraculous jack.
Wow.
And I was all in. He had me covered at that time, and it was a really, really huge pot. So.
And now you're the third sexiest man on AOL instead of Chris Bell.
Instead of Chris Bell.
Right. Wow.
That is something in it.
Some people say they hate jacks. I can imagine Chris Bell really hates
He's
jacks.
got me twice with a jack. He got me in Tunica, too.
Yeah, in Tunica we had a big pot where...
Jack on the river again?
I had jack on the river for 2 pair, and I won a pretty big pot there, too.
Well, if we can step back 1 second here, what I thought was interesting was you were mentioning that a play that had happened the day before influenced your play at the final table. It's something we don't talk about on the show a lot, but talk a little bit about setting up plays. How often do you find a person you think you can set up a play, or you're intentionally doing specific things to lead someone in one direction when your intention later is to take them somewhere else?
I do it some. I don't do it a lot. That's something that Gavin probably does better than anybody I know, to be honest with you. He'll make a ton of calls behind people waiting, to eventually trap them for their chips. I wish I did that more, to be honest with you. But I do it on occasion, but that's not the biggest part of my game. Not like I think Gavin does it,
Gavin, Joe,
religiously.
Do you guys do that? You're setting people up throughout the course of a tournament. I know that eventually I'm going to be able to bust this guy because of how he's perceiving me right now.
I'll tell you one thing, again, in that Mirage tournament, I'll tell you, the hand that changed my mind about Chris Bell's poker game was the day before the final table, and it was against Keto, and it'll probably change the way Keto plays against him for the rest of his life. Maybe you can actually help me out on the details, Chris. I know Keto raised pre-flop, and he got called by Asher Durai, who's really quite tight, and Chris called out of the blind. The flop came, I believe it was ace 8.
Yep, that's right.
And Chris led at the pot. Keto called, and Asher called.
And it came with 2 clubs.
It comes with 2 clubs. The turn is the 7 of clubs, is it?
Yep.
The turn's the 7 of clubs. Chris checks. Keto fam puts in a pretty good size bet. Asher thinks for a second and mucks. Now Chris raises, I think, about 2/3 of your stack.
Yeah, I was
2/3 of his stack. And Keto thinks forever. Now, if anybody who's played with Keto knows that he's not a guy that lays down a lot of hands.
Right.
So Keto thinks forever and eventually shows an ace and throws it away. I think he showed ace queen, actually, didn't he?
He showed ace queen.
He showed ace queen and throws it away.
Wow.
And Chris turns over 10-9. So he led at the ace 8 flop. When the 7 comes, he check raises 2/3 of his stack and gets a guy that doesn't throw away hands to throw away ace queen.
I think that's probably the worst laydown he's ever made. I think.
I bet he never makes it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so that goes to setting up plays.
But
from now on, for the rest of his life, Keto will never lay a hand down against Chris.
But those are the kind of plays that normally I go broke in tournaments with. Usually I get caught in that spot and I go broke.
Are you a bit of a psycho? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, but if I start bluffing, I always pretty much continue, and lately I've been getting called, so I'm not bluffing during the World Series main event until like day 3.
I've made this exact same deal with myself. I'm not bluffing on day 1 at any point.
I don't think I'm gonna bluff on day 2, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Day 3, I'll pick up some chips. I'll start bluffing.
Even to a bigger point, we were talking about this on the last show. I don't even feel that you have to bluff at that point. You know what I mean? I don't feel that people are going to be doing so many knuckleheaded things that you're not going to ever have to say, put yourself in that position.
Right.
I mean, that's the way I feel about that first.
You think it's
days.
good advice for anyone in the first couple of days of the main event, or just you guys who are going to eventually be able to outplay people?
Well, no, I think
guarantee you on day 1 I'll be bluffing.
Yeah, I know you will.
I think bluffing on that first day is a big mistake because there are going to be a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience, who A, aren't going to understand the bluff, B, are just going to, like, a lot of times, play these guys, don't get to play all the time. So when I first started playing and I had top pair, I was calling. That's it. If I have ace 10 and there's ace on the board, I'm calling. Because I don't understand that. How could I fold? I have top pair.
What's changed?
What? What's changed? Well, now usually I go broke on second pairs and third pairs and stuff. It's not top pairs as much.
What about this? We talked to Mike Grotz on the show, and he mentioned that you were a real good friend of his and a poker mentor. What does it feel like when you sort of come up in the ranks and teach people a thing about the game, and then you see them go on to be as successful as Mike has?
It feels good. I mean, Mike and I were really good friends before he started playing the tournament. So, like, just to see, and Mike's a really good kid, and to see him have the success that he's had, it's like your little brother, like doing really good in baseball, or and you're getting to watch him, and you knew that you taught him how to play. Which I didn't teach him how to play necessarily, but you knew that you influenced him, and it feels good. I mean, I'm happy for him.
Were you friends or just in the same games? How do you sort of know that there's someone you want to impart any knowledge to, that they're good enough, or that they have the makings of the kind of player that you want to help mentor or at least discuss poker with?
When we first started playing, I playing the cash games with him. Mike was probably a loser in the cash games, but his style, just I always thought he'd be really good in tournaments because he was fearless, and like he would always put in the bets, and he'd always fire, and like he had a lot of heart even when like he didn't have any money, like he'd be putting his last money in there, and so I always thought that he had the heart to play tournaments. So I talked him into going to the tournament in Atlantic City, where he won,
right,
and that's where it kind of got his start, I guess.
So next year, tournament circuit continuing. You said this World Series is a grind. Are you gonna be out on the tournament circuit for the coming year as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is what I do. So I can't imagine doing anything different. I'll take a couple weeks off, maybe a month off, and then I'll figure out what my schedule is from there.
All right. Best luck in the main event. Best of luck in the coming year. We appreciate it. Chris Bell, everybody.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Take it, buddy.
Later, Chris.
All right. Our next guest is in studio now, here to talk about the lawsuit that has been filed in Los Angeles against the World Poker Tour. Howard Lederer. Howard, welcome back to the show.
Hey. Pleasure to be here.
You can't stay away from the circuit.
No.
Addiction.
I couldn't wait.
Is it twice in 1 week, or not quite twice in 1 week?
No, it wasn't quite. It's not
twice
quite
in
that.
like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I was reading through the news on this suit, and it says there seems to be 2 major points that are outlined here. One being the release, and the other being the contract. Seem to be the 2 complaints. The contract with the casinos. Is that right? Mm-hmm. If you could start by just explaining what is the issue with the release and.
Well, fundamentally, the problems that the players have with the World Poker Tour, we do think are caused by the fact that there are these non-compete contracts between the different casinos. These casinos would be otherwise competing for our attendance in these events, and they'd be competing on things like the release, and they'd be competing on things like the structures. if there weren't these contracts between really very economically distinct entities. So the World Poker Tour kind of has a lock on all these tournaments, and they're really the only entity out there that's trying to enforce these releases in such an onerous way. I mean, you look at even the World Series release and a lot of other releases, and they're not looking for all these other player rights beyond the shows. I mean, no one's trying to stop the WPT from making a great show. They've been great for poker. What players are trying to do is be able to control their name and likeness outside of the WPT programs, and that's really what this fight is about. It's also about structures too. I mean, I think it's a real shame that right here in this venue you have a 6-day tournament, $25,000 buy-in, $20 million tournament that gets down to the final 6 and it's settled in 4 hours.
Right.
So we have the release, the casino contract. What ultimately? Well, who else is attached to the suit, by the way?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not just me. My sister Annie Duke, Chris Ferguson, Greg Raymer, Phil Gordon, Andy Block, and Joe Hashem are also plaintiffs in the suit. But it's really not about the 7 of us. This is about all poker players. We think that poker players, we think very deeply that poker players should have the right to control their image. That's all we have beyond our skills. And just to play in a tournament where we're putting up the buy-ins, we're paying a house fee, we're paying our travel, doesn't mean that we should have to give up control of who we are. And there are a lot of people out there who may not think that their release, they may not think that their name and likeness is worth much now, and maybe it isn't worth much now. And they may even be thinking to themselves they would never even want to endorse a product. But if you go and play in a WPT event and you win, all of a sudden the WPT, it's very broad rights. Right. And you might find yourself endorsing a product that you don't want to endorse because you lose control. So, anyone that values who they are and their name, I think, should care about this.
Right. So I'm assuming you're also saying that this doesn't only benefit the big guys out there, the Howard Lederers, the Andy Dukes, people who can make a buck off of their name, because a lot of poker, obviously there's tons of people coming out trying to play in these events and maybe won't ever, like you're saying, but it's also for the little guy as well.
Well, in some ways it almost smacks like the WWE a little bit, Mm-hmm. Sort of before they'll even put you on TV, wrestling, right, you have to sign a contract where they own you. The Rock has to pay them money every time they use The Rock in like a movie. That name.
Really?
The WWE owns The Rock's name, and he signed those rights away to become a star in the WWE. Mm-hmm. And in effect, there are 500-600 people anteing up at all these WPT events that are almost doing the same thing. They're giving up their rights in advance of potential fame.
Right.
And it just doesn't feel fair.
Right. And what? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. The problem I think is that poker is this, burgeoning entity, and none of these rules have been set. All of this has been. It's a very normal process. The NFL, NBA, they've all gone through this.
Yes.
So it's just that I think we all haven't seen an entity, go through this in such a long amount of time that it's kind of the growing process of everything. That's kind of happening. Now.
Joe, I don't think it's that extraordinary or should be unexpected, or in the long run that this is a bad thing for poker. I think this is part of the growing pains. Certainly, you mentioned the NFL, baseball. These are entities that built great markets.
Right.
And certainly felt entitled to control the players and the price that the different teams had to pay for the players. And that's kind of what's happening here in terms of the WPTs helped develop this great market. They're entitled to some spoils, but we feel like you need to draw the line somewhere. Right. And until the players step up and kind of push back on these issues, it's not going to change. And this has to happen really in every industry. The good news, though, for poker is that if you look at baseball, if you look at the NFL, these are entities that lost in these cases. Mm-hmm. And these entities are stronger because of it. This isn't something that's going to hurt the WPT. It's certainly not going to hurt poker. When players start to be treated more fairly, that's good for everybody. That includes the WPT.
Right. And how much of this has to do with just wanting to be able to get back in there and play in these WPT events?
That is a huge issue here. We've been on the sidelines now since I haven't played since last July. It's been 12 months. And I have competitive juices out there. I want to get in there. I want to be able to play in the biggest, best tournaments in the world. And right now, we don't have choices. For about 10 months out of the year, not during the WSOP time, if you're sitting at home, you go, boy, I'd really like to play in a big $10,000 buy-in tournament against the best players in the world, you have a choice. You can either give up these rights, which are completely unfair to have to give those up, or you sit on the sidelines and don't play, and that's killing all of us.
what exactly does the suit seek if things were to come out exactly the way you wanted them to? Actually, I'll read the email we got here. It was from Jorge from the Bronx, and wanted to know what benefits would come from the lawsuit in favor of the players and what damages you ultimately seek. But he also wants to know, after you're done with that, is what do you think of the rough draft that Daniel has completed for next year's World Series of Poker, since that was another hot button issue over the summer, and Daniel has come up with an interesting list of how he thinks the World Series should be next year.
Yeah, well, what our damages will be ultimately, that'll all come out in discovery, and they're going to be accountants and like very fancy people need to be hired to figure these things out. And in terms of the results, I don't know that we know, and I don't know that we're even trying to set the market for these things. What we're saying is right now it's not a fair competitive market. So let the market decide what kind of releases players should have to sign. Let the market decide what kinds of final table structures will lure the best fields. But right now, as long as every major tournament, nearly every major tournament during most of the year is tied into these final table structures and these releases, there isn't a fair marketplace for our services. So what we're asking for is let the market decide. In terms of Daniel's schedule, I looked at it. I think it looks great. There are a few things I would change, and I do. The one issue I have is that ESPN is going to choose some of these events to televise or not to televise, and I think that changes things. And what I'm really hoping happens, and I think it will happen, is that Daniel, maybe a few of the other players are in the room with kind of that the rough draft maybe that Daniel sort of came up with. Harris is in the room, and ESPN is in the room, and we all figure out this stuff together. Depending on the events that ESPN wants to cover, that'll change maybe how the schedule ought to look. But I think as a rough draft, it's fantastic.
Now, why is it the other 6 people that are on it? Why the particular 7 players that brought suit? I'm assuming these aren't the only people who maybe intend to use their likeness in other arenas. Is it just other people aren't informed of it, or is it just because they're going to
I mean,
sacrifice?
This is sort of an ad hoc group, but the one thing we all have in common is we've been on the sidelines for quite a while. None of us have played since at least November, and all of us want to play. And we all care enough about this issue, and we feel like the players, someone needs to step up and represent the players here and push back a little on these very, very important issues.
And I think in terms of that one too, Scott, I think that at the time when these 7 people decided that they were not going to play WPT events and they were going to take a stance against this, there's probably a lot of other people who agree with it, but aren't in a position to be able to step out of that.
To have the name,
for instance, I'll give you as an example myself. I'd won one WPT event. I had a little bit of money, but I wasn't financially secure, and this is what I do for a living. I play tournament poker. I don't own a business. I don't have another source of income. I play tournament poker. For me to sit against the WPT, I'm not going to play your tournaments anymore. That means I don't have a livelihood anymore. It means I've got to hope I can make enough money in 6 weeks of the World Series to last me an entire year, which is unreasonable to do that.
Yeah, and that's what antitrust laws are all about.
Right.
When people are given a choice of something that, where they either have to sign something that's really not in their best interest or not do what they do, that's what antitrust laws were really developed to protect. And, I feel for Gavin, and I don't hold anyone I don't have any issue with Gavin playing. I made a personal decision. And one thing you may want to know, these 7 players, it's not like we went out and tried to gather some boycott. It's not like we went out there and tried to organize the players here. What we did was very quietly stop playing. Now, if someone asked us, hey, why aren't you playing the WPT? We say, look, we have a problem with the release. But we weren't out there trying to organize a player boycott, and we worked with the WPT. We tried to negotiate in good faith. And at some point, it became clear that we weren't going to come to a resolution just through normal negotiating channels, and we just felt like we had to take action.
Right. All right. Thanks, Howard. Best of luck in the main event. Thanks for coming by and discussing this with us. And
thank you.
Howard Lederer, everybody.
Thanks, Howard.
Appreciate it.
All right, now you've heard Howard's side of the story. For him and the other 6 players filed suit with him. The WPT has declined to send a representative to the circuit. However, they have asked that we read their press release, which I'm going to do right now. This was in Los Angeles, July 20th, 2006. World Poker Tour Enterprises Incorporated today announced that while it has not received formal notice of a filing of suit based on an initial review of a complaint posted on a website by 7 poker players, the company believes the asserted antitrust and other claims severely distort the facts and misrepresent the current state of competition in the poker industry. WPTE's General Counsel Adam Pliska stated, "We believe the claims alleged in this suit are without merit and plan to vigorously defend our position while pursuing all available legal avenues necessary to end this unfounded attack. The company will be represented by the Los Angeles-based law firm of Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, LLP." This quote from Steve Lipscomb, "We are proud of our contribution to the growth of the poker industry and are happy many players have benefited from it. Therefore, we find it disappointing that a handful of players of the many thousands who play in WPT events each year have decided to make these claims even as the sport continues to grow." So that is the World Poker Tour standpoint. We'll be back after this on the circuit.
Card Player is proud to announce that all books and DVDs will be 50% off for a limited time. From Doyle's Super System to Phil Hellmuth's instructional DVDs, you can find everything you need to improve your game at pokerstore.cardplayer.com.
Welcome back to the circuit, everyone. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122, on cardplayer.com, and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. Scott Huff, Gavin Smith, and Joe Sebok here in the Fontana Bar at the Bellagio. For those of you who maybe have a little bit of a weak bankroll but want to improve your game and win some money at the same time, check out www.cardplayer.com/freepoker, and you can register for our monthly free rolls worth $3,000. Every month, Card Player offers you a chance to play and win. We're givers. What can we say? Right, boys? We give. You guys give out the strategy. You can employ it at Card Player Free Poker and potentially pick up some money to swell that bankroll.
If you get much chips.
If you get much chip, you can.
Absolutely. You can get much chips there.
Some Skrilla.
I actually ran into the guy who won the overall points last night at Tao. It seemed like he was having a great time. He got free rolled into the main event, so he's free rolling for $10 million. He gets to go to cool parties at Tao.
What overall points at Tao?
It's further. It was just
no. The overall points on the Card Player free roll.
Oh. Right. Do you guys know that last night at Tao, I came within a smidgen of beating Jeanette Lee?
I watched it.
The Black Widow.
Unbelievable.
Oh, did you? That must have been. That was clearly after I left.
It was a smidgen. I rattled it.
Wow.
All right, we'd like to thank our guests today, Chris Bell and Howard Lederer, for being on the show. Tomorrow, I am going to work on Jeff Madsen, but who knows? Next week is going to be a monster week. I'm going to thank Michael the Grinder Mizraki as well, because he's standing about 2 feet away from the table. And if you just heard that bubble pop, that was him. We'll be back tomorrow. Scott Huff, Joe Sebok, and Gavin Smith. Say goodnight, boys.
Later.